Welcome to another episode of Mastering the Game, Inside Coaching Minds. I'm your host, Jeremy Bruick, and once again, we have the privilege of looking at the world of sports psychology with Coach Mike Fuline. He's our head men's basketball coach at the University of Mount Union. Welcome back, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the crucial role of self-confidence in athletes. So I'm just kind of wondering, to get us started, how do you define self-confidence in sports when we look at athletes' perceptions of their ability and if they think they can achieve success? What's self-confidence mean?
Yeah, that's what it is. Just kind of the capacity that you have to achieve your goals. How good can you be? It's not always just about the skill level, but just your mental aspect. That helps with the performance. It really does. And the longer you're around athletes, when you're coaching at this level, and we've been fortunate enough to have some really good players and athletes and teams. Your confidence better be there. It should be there, but that doesn't always, that doesn't always happen. I think people would be shocked. Even some really confident players, they get into a little lull, and as coaches sometimes, right, you lose confidence if you get beat up a little bit, and you got to just kind of find a way to fight through that. But there's a certain mental toughness about confidence that I try to preach to our guys. I have a term, it's kind of old school. Hey, just get a little tougher, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a game. And you have to be a little, you can feel sorry for yourself or not, and try to just get a little bit tougher. So confidence is a huge part in every sport. It's a huge part in life. It's a huge part in business. It's a huge part in anything that you do. So finding yourself, and that doesn't mean you'll never have a self-doubt, but the truly confident people will find ways to get past that.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's interesting that you mentioned that. So I guess I'm wondering, in your coaching experience, do you have examples that you could share about athletes with high self-confidence and then those with low, and how do they behave differently? Like what sets them apart, someone with high confidence and low?
Yeah, usually the guys and girls who I've been around with high confidence just have this, persistence, right? Whenever the bigger the challenge, that's the bigger the game. You could just see there's just a level of cockiness almost, right? That
Yep.
that they want to be a part of. Usually the people with the low confidence, when they come off the floor, they make one mistake. Mike Krzyzewski's famous term is next play, right? Next
Mm-hmm.
play, next play, next play. That got infamous now for so many people, and it's almost in life too, right?
Right.
Next day, next play. People with low self-confidence have a harder, more difficult time getting to, the next play. And then, I don't think there's always two different types of people. That could be the same person.
Okay.
An example that I'll give is, in 2010, I was fortunate enough to coach a state championship team at Jackson High School, and we had a point guard on that team who, you should never have favorites, but man, it'd be hard for him not to be mine. And he's married now with kids, but
Yeah.
he was the most confident guy, toughest guy that I have ever been around. And I can give you 100 examples of the times where he showed that confidence. Well, we're in the regional final, one game away from Columbus, and it's getting kind of tight, and he wasn't playing very well. And he came out in the fourth quarter. There's probably like 5.5 minutes to go. I think we're down 2 or 3,
Mm-hmm.
and just complaining about his calf. Well, this kid has never complained. He played with broken fingers, this and that, and I could just see him. He was maybe freaking out
Mm-hmm.
a little bit,
Yeah.
right? This is kind of a big moment, sold out, Akron U, And, I just turned to him and challenged him. I'm like, all right, just understand, this is how you want to go out. You'll never, ever, ever forget this moment. You want to be this guy and go out and be soft, you're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and do that. And there was probably some other words in there I was probably not allowed to use at the time.
Yeah.
And so I turn around and I'm coaching, and the ball goes out of bounds or something, and the horn, and I go in to see who's going in for them. Well, it's my guy checking himself into the game.
Okay.
And then hits the last 5 free throws to win the game for us to go to state. And we still talk about that. I go, that's the first time I saw you freak out. I think as a coach sometimes you just got to snap them out of it. Like, listen, man, just you've done this your whole life. Who cares? Have the ball in your hands. If we lose, we lose. If we win, you're the hero. So it can always be. It doesn't always have to be, different types of people. It could be the same person,
Yeah.
Going through different emotions.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great story because I know the chapter in our text talks about Bandura's self-efficacy theory, and you kind of just, summed it up really well there. What do you do as a coach to enhance athletes' beliefs in their abilities and let them know that they can execute to get them and to get you and your team where they want to be? What do? You challenge them? You sometimes use unkind words. Is it the same for everybody? Is it different?
Yeah, like we've talked about some other chapters, it's different, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be different for most athletes. You just have to learn as a coach, I think, what buttons to push with certain individuals. That guy, I mean, we go out to eat once every couple months still to this day, and it's 14 years later. So we had a relationship where I could do that. I've had many guys like that on our team currently, where you can just kind of push their buttons and it just kind of flip. You'd rather them be mad at me, right?
Right.
Than the team or themselves or this and that.
Yep.
There's others that I struggle with because no matter how well they're playing, they still think, they're not performing at a certain, feat. So what I try to do is just always be a little over the top in the compliments to them. When our assistants make cut-ups of the film, we always want to, make sure you put 3 with this guy in there.
Right.
He may only had 3 really good plays, and I know we talk about that later, but I think having proof, showing them in clips of themselves and certain instances where they were successful helps that. And it, goes with the law of what we were talking about. So,
yeah.
I think anytime you can erase self-doubt in practice, maybe that's, hey, there's a shooting drill, and we have to make a certain amount in a certain amount of time. We do that every day. And if they don't hit it, maybe we do it again to make them feel good. I do believe in ending practice on a high note. The
Mm-hmm.
ball went in. It may be 7 minutes early, but that's the best it's going to look. Why go on and bring it in? So there's a lot of different techniques you can use.
Yeah, and I think that you really hit on a crucial factor there, Coach, when you're talking about when they have self-doubt, what do you do to build them back up? And I just think that that's at the heart of teaching as well. We provide feedback as teachers and as coaches because we want people to understand where they can improve. And it's that positive feedback that really catches their ear and gets them to pay attention. And then you can go and work on the smaller things that, hey, you really do need some work here, on your follow through or,
sure,
on your knuckleball or whatever you're coaching. So,
right.
It's the coach that can help erase that self-doubt. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so you did talk a little bit there about your point guard and about how, you addressed his confidence level to help him get over that crucial bump that you needed. You're not making it to the state finals if you don't win that game.
Right.
So what do you think the coach's role is in erasing self-doubt and achieving success?
I think it's huge. I think that's what separates, bad from good and good from great coaches, right? You just being able to now, maybe it's some of the older generations, the old days. Again, to use a Bobby Knight, phrase is, the best, the best motivation is, sitting next to him. I think we had talked about that as well.
Yep.
So back in the day, that was a tactic, right? If you're not going to be confident, we're just going to replace you a little bit.
Right.
Obviously, times have changed. You're going to need some players who might be going through it a little bit to help you win. So it's a huge part of what we do, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand each individual and what their traits are. They may come from a home where dad was so tough on them, man, and just kind of like just mentally grinded and beat them down. So if I know that the male figure in their life was always that way, then I have to be different. That's the biggest thing I've learned here. We've been surrounded by a lot of guys who maybe haven't had that father figure in their life. So they're not only looking at you as a coach, but, hey, you're supposed to be helping me. I thought you cared about me, So there's, so when I talk about that point guard, we are so close that I knew I can get after him a little bit.
Right.
There's some freshmen on our team currently that I couldn't do that. You're still trying to figure it out and feel it out. I've had guys, I'll have fifth-year guys this year that I can say just about anything I want to, and they can kind of say anything they want to me too. So our role in that is enormous. And I think as coaches go through, especially the young coaches who maybe are in this class, you're going to figure out not everyone's the same, how to motivate different people differently. Like I know how to press the buttons to my own son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've been around him, right? So, for him, it's just a reminder of, who you playing for, why, and talk about his family and his grandparents being there, and then that kind of clicks in, and that is for a lot of players to get that self-doubt out.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're saying is that as a coach, you're always taking in descriptive information about your players, and you're analyzing what is their confidence level, how are they doing on the court for me, and then trying to find that sweet spot where you can press the right button to flip them up to the next level and deliver, right? And our text talks about that as well, and it'll call it something specific like descriptive research, but really what you're doing is you're seeing things, you're hearing things, and you're putting that all together to figure out, how do I get through to this guy?
Right. Our research is what we see, right? It's what you feel. I mean, coaching is a lot of feel too, at least for me. Like it's just a lot of feel. Right now, currently, we have a guy struggling. So how do I get him past that? Well, that's through practice, right? Every good play he makes, just keep putting him in situations. And then once he does get that, right, it clicks. We all go through slumps like we talked about last week. But, just that positive reinforcement every time it happens. And then, I'll be honest with you, just kicking them in the rear end sometimes. Like, hey, let's go, man. Like, let's go. Quit feeling sorry for yourself, and let's go.
Yep. So you're kind of describing times when there is these moments of psychological momentum. So how do you handle those shifts, whether it's game to game or in game? What do you do to try to turn that momentum and make sure that you're leading your team in the direction you want to go?
It's a great question. And what I would say, and some may not agree with this, right? So we're trying to change those behaviors, those confidence measures. That we're assessing that during practice, in film, body language, and things like that. Once the game starts, like, you got to win the game. Like, that's the number one goal. So to me, that's not a time to just, we're not trying to cure your self-doubt today. Like, it's like you've had all week to study for the test, and now the test has come. And if you're not prepared, you're not prepared. Now, that doesn't mean we don't give guys a chance or two chances while the game's going on, but you could tell on body language, and immediately, like, all right, this guy doesn't have it today, so we're going to go with someone else who may, and then address that, after the game, and maybe even the day or two after that game, until finally you snap out of it, or we have to move on until you do, because at that point, winning the game on that day is the most important thing.
Right. So there is a need probably to help athletes manage those negative moods, those moments of self-doubt. Typically, it's probably not during the game. What do you do during a week or in between games when you got someone that's low and you're trying to build them up? What advice for coaches do you have there?
So what we will do, we split up our teams into 3 different during practice. So maybe you switch the team where they have more of a role, like they have to perform, or their team's going to lose in everything we do that day. That's one thing that we've done. We sit down and talk to them and tell them how much we care about. We love you. You're going to figure this out. You share stories like I did about our point guard, and then slowly you'll just see that start to turn a little bit. Maybe sometimes it doesn't until the following year. Like, I think everyone progresses at their own rate. So, trying to change those behaviors, and as coaches who are all listening, you're probably like, Coach, we don't have time. You don't have time to but but you do in the practice. At the end of the day, their self-doubt and self-confidence, if you're showing as a coach that you believe in them, you've talked to them, you've showed them on film, you showed some belief in them, and then at the end of the day, man, that's got to be in their hands, right? It's like, you got to flip it. You know, your confidence is on you. You wouldn't be playing here if you weren't good, right? If you weren't a talented player, we never would have asked you to come and play for us. You would never be getting minutes if you weren't talented and good. You would never be the high school star that you are. So, you know, you've proven you're a special player. Now, again, let's get a little tougher here, and that's what ends up happening with me, is that you get to a point where, like, hey, man, let's go.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's worked for us successfully. Some may need more attention, and, you know, that's why you have some assistants, too, to just say, hey, that's the other thing we do. We'll take you to lunch. You know, assistant will take you to lunch.
Yep.
And, hey, let's talk about it, because sometimes it may be something off the floor.
Right.
And then, you know, you got to try to help those things, you know, before you get, you know, the performance that you want on the floor.
Right. So it really sounds like you're as a coaching staff, you're blending what the book would call the Bandura's and Veely's theories to kind of boost athletes' self-beliefs and self-confidence. And I typically don't go too far off script with you, Coach, but I want to ask you this one thing. What do you do for you when you're the coach and you're having that self-doubt, because you're the leader out there and those guys are looking at you, whether they're players or your assistant coaches, and you can't lie to me and tell me that you never had self-doubt of yourself. So what do you do for you as a coach to snap out of it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I've done this a long time and have been out coached many times, right? And you kind of know it while you're in it, right? You kind of have that feeling. Man, this isn't kind of going our way a little bit. So there's always that, you know, that self-doubt, that self-confidence. Here's the one thing, and I don't know if we get to it later in the semester, but maybe that's a good time to say it, is, you know, the one frustrating thing that I have being around younger coaches is that, you know, when things don't go well, it's the player's fault. Yeah. They take it's, you know, this guy didn't play well, this girl didn't play well, this, you know, and to me, it drove me absolutely crazy. Yep. Because I've always, now I may take the 2 hours after the game and self-pity when I go to the hood, right?
Yeah.
And indulge a little bit. Maybe that you're with your staff, right? And you have 2 hours of, man, he's not, and you are having to always assess players and their performance.
Sure.
But when those 2 hours are home and I'm driving back home and it's a 40-minute drive, it is pure self-evaluation. And then when I get home to watch it, because you can't sleep, and you sit there and you're like, I'm the coach of this team. This is my team right now. You know, I think that's so important to understand the assessment, and that builds into confidence. Like, I think my self-confidence is the preparation going into the week, and then the ability to recognize this isn't working, having the confidence to pivot, and then trying to do that. But my self-confidence after losses is awful. I think I quit in my head 8 times. I'm going to go sell insurance, right? Like, I mean, it's a weekly thing, you know, because you know, losing's hard, and it's a difficult thing. So those things happen every day, and then it's the same conversation I have with my players to myself. Hey, get a little tougher. Quit being so soft, man. I mean, you know, things happen. Snap out of it. Get your team in a better position to win, and maybe not just win, but to compete if your program's only at that level so far. So it is key to when we lose games as coaches. Maybe our players that evaluate you, your staff, every single time. Put the blame directly on you, right? And I think, like, it's hard. It takes a lot out of you. Sure. Physically, emotionally. I mean, it'll probably get me out of coaching at some point in my life earlier than I should. Right. But I think that is the root of coaching. Like, it's us. Let's fix it and let's change it. And then your confidence level, once that does happen, starts to rise, and you become a better coach. Yeah. Great thoughts again. I appreciate the time, Coach. Always a pleasure to talk to you and get a little insight.
appreciate your look into self-confidence, not only in athletes, but in yourself as a coach. I just want to thank you for coming on, and we look forward to doing this again real soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate it.